it looked like somebody was bent over and had their head in the window of the deer blind, and it either heard me or smelt me, and he pulled his head out of the tent and stood straight up, and that shocked me. They don't make people that big.
The way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. I know what a bear looks like, and there is no way on this planet that what I saw were bears.
What are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
This is Alicia from Kennesaw, Georgia, and you're listening to the best podcast on the planet, Sasquatch Chronicles.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you. We'll be chatting with Shannon. And Shannon comes to us from Washington State. And in the last week, she had a sighting of a very strange creature. Sent me an email about it, asked her if she'd come on and share what she saw that day. And I'll let her go into it. And then we're going to wrap up with Elijah. And Elijah comes to us from Virginia. And back in the 80s, he was about 15, 16 years old when he ran into this creature. And I asked him if he'd come on and kind of share what he saw that day. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Shannon to the show. Shannon, thanks for coming on.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and you had this really recent encounter, like within the last week or so, here in Washington State. If you would kind of start from the beginning, what were you doing and what happened?
Yeah, so my husband and I have a Honda Talon side-by-side UTV. We go all over Washington State, sometimes to Oregon, Idaho, and there's a lot of people locally that have UTVs, and our father-in-law and even my own dad. I grew up here in Grays Harbor County and moved to, I think it's east of Bakersfield for like a year. So I lived in the Sequoia National Forest down there for a year and ended up moving back to Washington. And my husband and I, this was Sunday. And so Sunday, August 31st, we decided to let my dad and my sister and my nephew know, hey, we're going to go out in some side-by-sides. There's going to be a group of 4 of us. So my husband and I are always in the front, and my husband's very familiar with all the hunting grounds around here and all the logging roads. He actually used to be a log truck driver. And then for the last 14, almost 15 years was working as a county employee for the roads department. And myself, I used to work for the Shelton Department of Corrections for many years and then promoted up to headquarters in Olympia. So we're really familiar with the Olympic Peninsula and the Olympic National Forest, Capitol Forest, all the local spots to go ride and go hunting and fishing. Myself have rifle hunted and bow hunted in previous years. And so this was a very common spot where we were headed. honestly, the amount of deer and elk out there has been so sad. There's been like no animals, no predatory animals out there. It's the kind of a weird thing. And when I was growing up the Wainuchi Road, you always saw deer everywhere. There were deer, there were herds of elk. You knew where they were, what times of the year where they were. You knew when the salmon were spawning, when the steelhead was in. Like, you just knew. It was very, very common. Every year it was kind of like repetitive. You knew where everything was and what was going on. So my dad and I were talking just actually a couple days prior to this happening and said, it's weird. There's no animals up there. I said, I know. He goes, I got my bear tag. I said, yeah, so did my husband, Brandon. And he goes, well, if you see anything, you and Brandon are in front. And you're the one always spotting all the animals. Just make sure you say something if you see a bear, elk, or deer, like, just it's a good spot for hunting. I said, sure, I will. And we saw 4 grouse that day. And literally, that was it until we were headed back to the truck. And I saw something that I've never seen before. And I didn't know how to verbalize it. I was trying to think of all the things that could move like that. And I took anatomy and physiology in college. I took a couple of photography type classes as well. And I'm the big photo taker. Like, my cell phone has over 20,000 pictures on there. I need to get a thumb drive and back it up to the cloud, but I'm just a big picture person. So on Sunday morning, we decided to go out there, and there's a spot right on the side of the road. We parked our truck and trailer. All of us got hooked up in our side-by-sides. We had our cooler with lunches in there, and we decided to first head straight up north into the Olympic National Forest. There's a lot of waterfalls, and it was really nice that morning because it had a lot of misty rain. We call it the marine layer. So when the marine layer comes in from the ocean, it kind of gives a good, dampness to all the logging roads, so it's not as dusty. So it's great. For the people behind us in their buggies. And so we headed up. We went all the way up to 3,600 feet elevation. My husband has the Onyx hunting map on his phone. We can pinpoint certain points. We knew our direction. When you got to the top of the mountain, you could look over to Mason County. Right now, there's the Bear Gulch fire. It is like all consuming right now. Just a wild, immense fire up there by Lake Cushman, north of Mason County area. And you could see the smoke was pretty stinking bad. It was just like, I wish that it's just awful how devastating forest fires are. And so we decided to get out of the smoke. We went back down to the valley area, and, our elevation there is probably like 500 feet. And when we were done with the day, we went swimming at Spider Lake. We got back in our buggies, riding around. And we're headed back to the truck, and we came around a pretty sharp corner, and then it comes down another hill, and then it flattened out. And I'm taking pictures of the sunbeams coming through the vine maples and the evergreen trees with the green moss. It's so pretty. Perfect time. I think this was like about 3 to 5 p.m. when I saw it. And I'm in the passenger seat, and I got my phone tucked away, and I'm just looking out to the side. I'm like, this is a perfect weather. It's like 65 degrees, 63 degrees. And we're driving flat, and the 3 buggies behind us, and I see something about 50 feet straight in the forest. There's an old cedar snag. It's probably, I'm going to guess, 20 feet tall. And basically a cedar snag is an old stump that's completely hollow. So the outside of it is really tough. It's not like a rotted stump. This is like a hard wooden material, and then it's hollow in the center. And behind it were some really big trees, but it was kind of open in front of this large stump. And I look over, and I'm like, I saw movement. Well, what I saw was this thing clinging, and I'm about 5'4". The heels of this animal was black. And I could see the heels were probably 6 foot off the ground, maybe a little more than that off the ground. And it had its arms and hands stuck to the side of the stump. It looked at us over its left shoulder, and it had a huge black mane, like almost like a humped neck with long black fur on its mane. And its head was stuck to the shoulders. There was no neck. So I was telling other people, yesterday and today about what I saw. And it was like Arnold Schwarzenegger's shoulders, his tiny waist. But this thing had a lot of upper body hair. And the arms and shoulders that were bulking out of its shoulder blades and shoulder, like the traps of its shoulder. The upper arms were huge. The forearm looked like a human, and the hands were massive, like long claws, long fingers. But it had hands. I saw it in one full motion, kind of let go of the side of this tall stump and kind of push away with its forearms. And as it looked behind its left shoulder, it went to the ground in a fast hurry, and it went twisted to the left. I saw its whole head, and I'm like, what am I looking at? That has a dog head. That has hands, number one. Number two, that is a dog head. And I didn't know what to think of it. And as it moved through the air to push away with its front of its body to go to the ground as quick as it could, the whole waist twisted, and I saw it kind of straighten its feet and let go of the stump. And it had almost hook heels. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I know, like huskies and hybrid wolf dogs have a dew claw. Well, that is kind of what it looked like, but the feet were abnormally long, like an orangutan's foot, or like a bigger monkey type legs. The legs were very weird. If you look up the anatomy of a toad, it has, basically 3 large segments of toe to hip. And it had a full hip, a full shin with like Achilles tendon that you could see. And it had less hair on its legs. I could see the skin, and I could see the definition of the muscle and the tendons in the back, like where our Achilles tendon would be. And then it had those long feet with a weird hook heel. And it quickly twisted in midair. And as it landed, it was already lateral with the ground, and it was embracing its own impact. It had its hands squatted and its arms squatted out like a man doing a push-up, and its legs were already tucked under it, almost like bobcat legs or dog legs. I don't know how to explain it. The legs were very weird. It did not have a tail. And now when it jumped and was midair, and I saw its back half torso twist, the sun was coming through, and I saw olive green chunks of, I guess it was moss, stuck in its like belly fur, like by its left elbow and its ribcage. And I was like, what? And I'm seeing this thing. And I immediately in our talk headphones, I said to Brandon, I said, hun, I said, what the hell was that? I said, I just saw something weird, hun, like weird. And he's like, well, we're not turning around. And I'm like, I know, I don't want to turn around. Like, I really didn't want to go see it. And I was speechless. So another 60 seconds, I'm processing like everything that I know. I'm like, that was not a Sasquatch. I've never seen a Sasquatch, but this was not huge and bulking. This thing was agile and canine, but it twisted so abnormally, like a gymnast. That's what I saw. And it was very hairy up top, like had a legit mane. It had a dog head. Its ears were forward, like a black German Shepherd head, but more fur, long fur. So I told my husband, he goes, maybe it was a black bear. I'm like, I've never seen a long-haired black bear. I go, have you? And I got home. I started Googling, black bear or black bear with long hair. And I saw something in India. They have a sloth bear. So I'm like, no, they don't have a big hump and big shoulders like a man, like a bodybuilding man. It was just weird. And I still am looking at pictures of like Dogman footprints, and that's exactly what the feet look like. The legs were weird. They were not bent in a normal fashion. I didn't see it, bipedal. I didn't see it standing up on 2 legs. But when it turned and looked at us, I think we snuck up on it, or we caught it off guard. And it quickly looked at us and quickly got to the ground. It was just weird. It was big. It was probably 6.5 feet long. My father-in-law, 6'1", and I've got 9-foot vaulted ceilings in my house, and it wasn't as tall as 9 foot at all, but it was up there. It was definitely 6 foot to 7 foot. And I got the vibe. It wasn't female. If I had to guess, I would say male, just off of the way the body muscles looked.
Yeah, it's kind of scary knowing it's here in Washington. I've taken many reports of dogmen, but it's always been in places like Michigan or Wisconsin or even the South. And it wasn't until about 5 or 6 years ago I started getting reports of them being here. It started in Oregon, where I took a couple reports of them up near Mount Hood. And then I got a couple reports of them in the Olympics. And Sasquatch is well known here in the Pacific Northwest, but not so much dogman. But over the years, I have been getting more and more reports of them.
I don't know one other person that's ever seen one, especially around here. Our neighbors had saw a Sasquatch in their driveway, both the husband and wife, and the husband has since passed, and she talks about it still. And the man would tell my dad about, his sighting in his own driveway, and it was in the same area, probably 15 miles from where I saw this dog man. But I don't know anyone in this area. So by you saying that, I just, it's almost like you need validation that I literally saw something I've never seen. I've never heard of one up here. So, yeah.
Yeah, living in the Pacific Northwest, even when you talk to someone about Sasquatch, you're less likely to get goofed on than you would probably anywhere else in the United States, because you'll meet someone, and even if they've never seen it, they know someone who has. A family member, a friend, a neighbor. So it's kind of unique here in the Pacific Northwest. But having said that, there's not a lot of dogman reports. The ones that I've taken were actually from the Olympic National Forest. When you saw this creature, how far away from you was it?
I would estimate. I'm pretty good with a rangefinder, so I think I'm pretty accurate with distance. I've got on my bow, I have a 20-yard pin and a 40-yard pin. So I would guess that this thing was 50 feet away off the road. Like, not in the sun. The way that the sun was shining through the forest towards us, I could see all the beautiful moss hanging and the turning of the colors of the vine maples. And this is probably one of my favorite times of the year. In fact, my birthday's next week on Friday, a week from today. And I just love this time of year. And so I take note of details and just, overall grateful for the relief from a hot summer, and we're going into fall. Like, I just love it. And this was kind of that scenario where it was only 50 feet away, and it was on my side of the rig, and the way that the sun was coming through, it was probably around like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And it was so easy to see all of it. It was too surreal, because I just, I'm still trying to wrap my mind about the back feet. Like, yeah, it had hands and it had a lot of hair. And it had a dog head, and there was no neck on this thing. And it's just like something, like, I was laughing with my husband. I said, so do you think that, like, the government does this? Like, is this an asset to the government and it got out? That's why, and I hear all these conspiracy theories, and some of the, legends and things. And I'm open to listening to others. I think it would be stupid. Everybody has their own encounter and their own perspective. Like, even if somebody was in one of the buggies behind me, their perspective of what I saw would be different. And my perspective from the angle, it was directly, 50 feet from me. And it was a wide open area on this crazy old tree. And I don't know. It's just, I'm still trying to wrap my mind, though, around those back feet and that back leg. Like, why were they bent like that? And my husband jokes. He's like, well, this is Twilight area, so that is Team Jacob. I'm like, well, my great-grandmother is full-blooded Cherokee, and my Ula, and she would tell my grandma Mildred, and my grandma Mildred would tell my mom, and my mom would tell me. And these traditions are verbal, but I don't think it was a skinwalker. This thing wasn't morphing. It wasn't a black shadow. It was a tangible animal, to the point that I saw so much upper body fur and strength. and the moss and it's stuck in like matted hair. I didn't hear anything because I had my ear, our talking mechanism of the talk box that we can talk to each other. And I didn't smell anything, but there was no wind in the air. It was very, very scenic day, very calm day. It was kind of, worldly day, just like very pretty, perfect, very still. But yeah, it was a Dogman. I don't know how to chalk it up any other way. And I told my husband, I said, do you think a person would be dressed up in an all black ghillie suit with like some crazy shoulders? And why would there be less hair on the back of the legs and the back of the feet? Like, I'm trying to talk out loud and explain it to my husband. So I'm like, I don't know. That was a Dogman. I don't know how else to explain it. It wasn't a swamp ape. It wasn't shifting in and out of realms. But this whole conspiracy theory, of government stuff and assets, like I'm very aware of a lot of things that were tried in Vietnam. And I'm very aware of potential, what do they call it, genetic editing. And I wouldn't put it past something like that. That's kind of it's a thing. The governments all over the world, governments, and especially when it comes to tactics and, war tactics, it's who has the bigger, better machine, who has the edge on the other opposing team. Like, I'm not saying it's government probability, but this thing was a real animal. And I don't see it on the, you don't have DNA. We don't have good evidence, I guess. And if so, it would have been destroyed a long time ago, probably by government. But I don't know. It was a real animal. So that freaks me out because I don't want to go out hunting anymore by myself or mushroom picking or picking little wild blackberries and the high mountain blueberries that we were picking this whole weekend. I don't know. It's just too real.
Yeah, I really don't think it's our government because this Dogman thing goes back. It has a long, long history. When the Egyptians wrote about Anubis, they didn't write about him as if he was some god they'd never seen before. They wrote about him like they had actually seen him and interacted with him. Marco Polo, the famous traveler and explorer, I forget the islands he was at, but he ran into these Dogman type creatures and he wrote about them in his diary. And there's even like a little drawing of them. And if my memory's right, I want to say even Christopher Columbus made some weird reference to them as well. But they go back so far. There's such a long history. I really don't think it's the government. I tend to think it's more of an entity. And again, this is just my opinion. And when I say entity, I mean, what people are running into is very physical. They're not running into a ghost. They're running into what appears to be a half man, half canine running around on two legs and terrifying people. And I mean, report after report. The other thing too, you'll notice about Dogman, and I hate that term Dogman, but I've had many eyewitnesses over the years come on the show and talk about shooting these things and it having zero effect on them. I mean, it's like they're bulletproof, which makes me think there's something else going on here as well. When you guys, I mean, you're pretty close to this creature. Do you think it noticed you guys were there? It must have.
Well, I kind of had, and this is going to sound a little crazy. This is my intuition. This is my feeling. I do think it was male. I think I keep hearing there are female male ones. I do think it was a male one. And I got the feeling that I had a glimpse, let's say, through a veil. Let's pretend there's an invisible opening. And it knew that we were coming by and I saw it. And it's like, it didn't want to be seen. And it quickly reacted and quickly got to the ground and wanted to lay flat. Like it was weird how it jumped off. It wasn't like a dog jumping down and standing its territory or ground. it did not want to be seen. It went flat to the ground. It was the weirdest thing. I was like, oh my gosh, that was like a frog. It was like a toad dog jumping off and twisting midair and landing flat and then flattening out. But I mean, if it's realm worthy, like some veil where people can see Sasquatch or ley lines in the earth, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is the first time I've ever seen something this weird. I've never seen a Sasquatch or a ghost. You know, I don't know.
I'm really curious about the legs and what you saw. You know, on a normal canine, what I'll call a normal canine, like a dog, with their locomotion, I believe their legs bend. There's like 3 major places where their leg will actually bend. And it's very much obviously unlike how our legs bend. But when you were watching this thing, was it like a canine's leg bending?
So the butt thing was weird. Like where a tail would have been on a dog was more toad-like, like not reptilian at all. It obviously had hair or fur, but it was like a dipped butt, like the tailbone up against the tree, and its legs went up like a toad, like abnormally tucked in by its side. And then the knee went down like a bow, not straight like a human. And then it had like a heel claw, and its feet were wrapped around the tree, kind of. So when it let go with its front torso and quickly looked over its left shoulder and went to the ground, when it let go with its back feet, it was like straighten the feet, like it wanted to let go and quickly drop. It just straightened its feet, almost like I don't know, like maybe it can make its claws go in and out, like its claws can grip the side of a tree and then let go of the tree. So it looked like a toad leg, but like a werewolf leg. When I look at Dogman photos on the internet this week, the legs were very different. It was not man legs. There's no, not man legs. The heel to the top of the knee was really long too. But that foot, what was up with the foot? It was weird. Like, you know, when a cat, so I have a Manx cat. She's, we call her the bowling ball. Her name's Beefy. And her back legs, she's a Manx cat. So they have a large rump. They have extended back legs similar to a bobcat. And they have that back foot. When you see a cat sitting on the ground and they're trying to hide, their foot, they have their back toes are flat and it goes to the heel. And then from the heel goes up to their hip, and the heel all the way back when a cat is like that is touching the ground, like a long, flat kind of a foot. And that's what this thing had. It had the kind of feet that were elongated and could lay flat, but it was like the same distance from the knee to the heel as its foot. So if I had to describe the legs, they were like bent. If it were standing up on 2 legs, I would assume it looked like a true werewolf leg, like that weird bendy piece that humans don't have.
Obviously, you guys didn't turn around at that moment, but have you ever gone back to that area?
We have not. We have not gone back to the area. I'm kind of freaked out because I don't want to see it, I don't think, but I would want to go back with a couple people and our pistols, and I would love to go like check that tree out and look where it jumped, like the distance off of and how high, like look for claws and whatnot, and then see where it landed. Because I can only assume that sucker, if my husband is 200 pounds, this thing had to be pushing 250, and with that muscle mass, maybe more. So you got 250-pound animal jumping quickly to the ground on all fours, trying to hide. Obviously, there's going to leave an imprint. I know that there's a lot of moss on the ground. It might be hard to see, but I don't know. It could have been even bigger than that. One of the cougars, my mom and dad's house had a lot of goats, and we've had to kill with Fish and Wildlife 4 different cougars. The male cougar that they found up the property from my mom and dad's house was 205 pounds. very large male cougar. The female that I ended up having made into a wall rug and whatnot, it's in our spare bedroom, and she was only 178 pounds, but still it's really big for a female cougar. But this looked way bulkier, way stronger, a lot bigger. I've seen a cougar actually run across the road, and it's amazing how long their tails are. And their heads are basketball shaped. Like a male cougar looks like a true lion. You feel like you're on a safari. And we saw one in Capitol Forest here in Olympia area. We were done hunting for the day. We sat in a blind all day, and we were headed home. And my husband's headlights went around a corner, and it just looked like a large lion head basketball with huge eyes. And I was like, that was a cougar. Oh my gosh, the thing was huge. And he's like, I saw something. He goes, did it duck down? I go, yeah, it ducked down into the little dry pieces of grass on the side of the logging road. It met our headlights. I think it was going to cross the road. But, things I've seen before are stuck in my mind. Like, I'm very detailed. And so I know what I saw. I know that this was something true, flesh and blood. And it was big.
Yeah, I tell people who aren't from the Pacific Northwest that, the cougars out here, they're bigger than your biggest dog, and they will throw you a real beating. And what you saw is even bigger than that. And it's scary, especially when you see something and it doesn't really click in your mind on what you're seeing. And thank God I've never seen the Dogman, but I've taken many reports of it. I say it's an entity, but again, I don't know. Normally I ask everyone, what do you think Sasquatch is? What do you think these Dogmen are?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like a prehistoric wolf thing that has morphed over the millennia into something quicker, more agile, better speed. I don't know. But when I saw its face and the actual nose and that forehead that went to the ears, I was like, oh my, that a dog head. And then I was like, what was up with the fur? Like the hump on the back and the massive amount of shoulder fur. And then I was like, well, that's not a Sasquatch because it wasn't bulking and large and gangly arms, and it didn't have that. And it didn't have a tail, right? So that's the other thing. It didn't have a tail. So I was like, what has a dog head but no tail? Like, what? I don't know what Sasquatch are, and I don't know what Dogmen are. I just think it's out there. But, theories are theories until they're proven or repeatable. But there's a lot of people, it sounds like forever and everywhere around the globe, people have seen these, and there are different ones apparently. So I get the fact that mine doesn't have a tail and it didn't have human legs. But that's just the weirdest thing. Is it gene splicing? I feel like there were 3 different animals in this one animal. So I don't know what they are. If it's demonic, if it's literally a hellhound or whatever. I didn't see glowing eyes. It wasn't 9 foot tall. It wasn't that big. I don't know. I don't know what this is, but I am open to listen to other people's encounters. I think that helps you learn. Just very weird. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this because this was 5 days ago? So I don't know.
I'll say the bulk of the reports I've taken, the eyewitnesses will describe it having no tail. There is reports of them with tails, and the witness will specifically mention the tail. But I'll say most of the time they'll say it didn't have a tail. The other thing with the Dogman is it's known to be, just from eyewitness reports, they seem to have a piss poor attitude, and they're very, very aggressive. Rarely will they ever run and hide. Most of the time they're the ones on offense, and they'll generally come for people, but you never hear of anyone actually being attacked. It's more like it's just trying to scare you. And I remember the very first Dogman report I took, the guy, he was from the Pacific Northwest, and he knew about Sasquatch. He'd never heard of Dogman. And he was like, yeah, I saw this really weird looking Sasquatch. And as he's describing it to me, from the muzzle nose, the canine head, the German Shepherd type ears, everything he described about it, to me, it sounded like a Dogman. Didn't sound like a Sasquatch at all. But I remember that hearing that report, and my heart kind of sank because I was like, oh no, they're here. This guy isn't sure of what he saw, but it wasn't a Sasquatch.
And I knew right away. I was like, when I saw it turn over its shoulder and look at me, and then when it jumped down, I saw its legs let go, and I looked from its legs, like my eye pattern. I saw its hands first. I looked over its shoulder. I'm like, fur? What kind of fur is that? That's not a bear. And then when I saw it twist midair, I was like, holy cougar. That twisted in the air like a cat would, or like a gymnast would, or the guys that run around and do parkour, like they flip over the staircase and then they run up a brick wall in Seattle and then they flip and land, do the superhero land. Like this thing was way more agile and graceful. And those back legs, I just can't get over the back legs. There is nothing I know that has back legs like that. In fact, when we get off the phone right now, I'm going to look up a hyena anatomy and hyena back feet or back legs, because the more, that I'm learning about these animals, I could see a vicious, large dire wolf. Like to me, this was a black dire wolf mixed with a man with some weird bone leg things going on, like abnormally. And I see, who's ever heard of a wolf climbing an old tree? I've never heard of a wolf climbing. I know huskies can climb ladders. They can get out of large kennels. I know they're good climbers, and they do have dew claws, usually at birth, or malamutes. But this was not a straight up dog. And those back legs, I just can't get over the back legs. What was that?
Yeah, their build is very strange. The eyewitnesses I've spoke to, even when they're running, and I know you're talking about the back legs, but even when they run, eyewitnesses will describe their arms kind of out in front of them and their hands kind of limp as they run. The back legs are very strange. And I could tell you, I found their tracks in Texas, and their tracks are even weirder. They're more like a V shape. It's a scary experience, especially being that close. I'm really surprised it wasn't more aggressive with you than it was. It's probably because you guys were just passing by. But I really appreciate you taking the time to share it and kind of come forward, because I'm getting more and more reports of these things in Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel, and I've told other people too, in this local area, I said, I feel almost compelled to say something, because if people don't talk about it, not that I want to normalize, the weirdness out there, but I don't want to hold this to myself, because I don't think it's right. I mean, let's be open and honest. And I'm a very open and honest person. I've told people, about a couple of surgeries I've had up at UW Medicine, and they're like, wow, you went through a lot, and you just don't have a problem telling. I'm like, no, because it's a learning moment for the rest of the people. I've learned because I went through it. Right. So everything in life, and humans think they're so smart. We think we're so advanced. We're so smart. If you ask me, I feel like we're getting dumber and stupider, and I was telling someone else, we see a fire, humans like, oh man, we better go over there and look what's going on. Well, not an animal. They have the instinct and the, critical thinking, smoke, I need to leave. They leave, they get the heck out of there. And, all that smoke that was in the upper atmosphere and up in the mountains when we were up high on Sunday. And then when we came down low, it was more like a little bit of dew on the ground. It was more green, and there was no smoke down below. And I think that has a lot to do with movement. I mean, all animals, they have a massive forest fire going on just north of my home here. And I live in Grace Harbor County. But, they're going to leave. They're going to rescind. They're going to go away. They're going to go as far as they can away from the crazy red hot embers of fire and smoke. And I think that was another reason why we saw it where we saw it is, these things typically they don't want to be seen unless they're pushed out of their normal territory. I don't know. It's just like the connections I'm making after this. And I drew a picture actually the next day of what I saw, like the quick of it, letting go with its upper torso and jumping to the left to get down to the ground. I drew a picture of it on paper. It's an awful photo, but I want to keep that fresh in my mind just by getting it on paper.
Yeah, I love your attitude. Never lose it. And you had sent me pictures, and I can't. And you sent them via text. I can't tell what it is, if it's a stump or if there's something there. What's the story behind these pictures?
So yesterday, this is interesting, and this gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, I'm actually getting the chills right now talking about this. Yesterday, when I was at work, I've worked at my place of employment for 12 and a half years, and everybody hunts and fishes all the time. Well, two of the guys that I sit at the lunch table with, I told them about what I saw, and they're like, really? They're like, well, in that area, you realize there's, like, I heard a guy back in the day at Camp Grisdale, and I'm like, yeah, why is it such a ghost town? That was the timber industry of the world, was Grisdale for like 2 decades. And then they're like, dude, I think that something ran them out. And that's why it's like a ghost town there. The only remnants are old mailboxes. And I'm like, well, this is my encounter. And then yesterday I was like, here, I'll show you pictures of where we were. And I'm showing them pictures and I go, hold up. I go, what is that? Standing by Spider Lake. I think I can go back actually and replicate this photo. I was at Spider Lake, and the next photo in my photo was my 10-year-old nephew standing next to an old growth. I think it was a spruce tree or a Douglas fir, but it was a huge tree. And so I went back and I said, my husband goes, hey, what time was that picture? I go, I don't know. And I scroll up and it tells me it was like at 1:40. And then my nephew's picture was like at 1:41. And I went back to this photo, and yesterday at lunchtime, I scrolled in. I'm like, no way that I took a photo. And to me, it's my husband is like a naysayer. He looked at it. He goes, that looks like an Ewok, Grandpa Sasquatch. I go, doesn't it? I said, it looks like a Star Wars Ewok. I said, what in the heck? How would I see a Dogman hours after I took this photo? I didn't know I took this photo. Again, I've never seen a Sasquatch or anything like a Sasquatch before. But in my photo, next to the biggest old growth in my photo, and the way that the sunbeams are coming from behind it, and there's a bunch of old dead trees, kind of snaggly trees. And sure enough, if you scroll in, it looks like a beautiful, shiny fur Sasquatch with graying eyebrows and gray on his face. And you can see his wrist hanging onto the bark of this massive old growth tree, like he's peeking around, looking at us driving by in our side-by-sides. And then I looked in the photo to the left and right, like, trying to get, I just wanted to see, like, is it really that big? And then I try to look at the tree next to it and the tree behind it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I accidentally snapped a photo of a potential Sasquatch, and I totally stand by it. I was like freaking out at lunch yesterday, and some of our lab workers and a couple of operators and one warehouse guy. And I'm like, look, and I'm like, I'll let you zoom in here. And I gave them my phone, and they zoomed in. They're like, that's an Ewok. I'm like, they're like, wow, look how shiny its fur is. I'm like, I need to know what kind of shampoo he's using, because that is some beautiful fur. You can see the shine on the fur. You can see its wrist. You can see its hand. And if you look, it's bulking man arm of a shoulder that goes down into a hand, and then it's laid flat on its hip. Like, you can see the leg. I'm amazed. I scrolled in, I took screenshots, I scrolled in again, and I'm like, oh man, this could be an actual accidental photo of a Sasquatch. So yeah, that's why I sent it to you.
Yeah, and I'll post your pictures below this episode. I get sent pictures of stumps all the time, and I'll have to examine this photo closer than I have. But at first glance, I was like, oh, there's something there. This was on the same day you saw the Dogman just prior? Yes,
that's what I'm also weirded out about. How can I see a Dogman hours later? A true Dogman, and then accidentally got a photo of potentially, I can count possibly 3 Sasquatch in the photo. If you see the full Sasquatch to the right or behind its left shoulder to the right in my photo, there's another being standing there. There's a dark being And if you change the negativity of the photo to black and white, it stands out even more. It is not gray like the shadows. It is jet black. So I'm weirded out with that photo that I captured because, I mean, it's almost undeniable proof in my photos. I had to send it to you because why not? What the heck is in that photo? What is in that picture? It's so crazy.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a closer look. And like I said before, I'll post a picture underneath this episode. Thank you again, Shannon, for coming on. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. And it feels good to get this off my chest and know that, other people may have seen exactly what I saw. It just is kind of confirmation and validating.
Next up on the show, I want to welcome Elijah. Elijah, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Wes, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, and happy birthday to you, man.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know your encounter took place in Virginia. We're kind of going back to the 80s. You're about 15, 16 years old. If you would, just start from the very beginning. What were you doing and what happened?
A buddy of mine, we've been lifelong friends. He's like 6 months younger. He comes to me one night and he's like, "Oh, I'm going down to Virginia with my uncle to this hunting cabin. Do you want to go?" I'm 16. I'm like, "Sure." It's summertime, no school. And we end up going down there, and they left to go to the store and do some things because his uncle like knew the area. We're on the Appalachian Trail. Indian Rock was the name of the place, about 30 miles outside of Roanoke, Virginia, on the James River. Beautiful area. So we get to this hunting cabin. They go off with some locals to go shopping and do a few things and don't come back. And they didn't come back. My buddy showed up 4 days later, thank God. But they didn't come back. I found out later they had a car accident. So I'm at a hunting cabin with no electricity, there's no cell phones back then, of course, and no running water or whatever. But we had a stream right there, and I just kind of made the best of it. And a lot of weird things happened. But for one, I'm just kind of like, waiting for my buddy to come back. I'm hoping he's okay. And I'm starting to wonder as the days go by. But I'm in this hunting cabin, and the only light in the cabin was like a candle light, which was fine. It had a wood stove or whatever, and it wasn't cold out anyway. But so I'm in this hunting cabin. I kept smelling this like wet animal smell. It smelled like a wet dog and urine. It didn't smell as pungent as a lot of these cases I hear of. And there was an attic upstairs, no windows. So I'm upstairs there and just dark stairs going up. And I wasn't going to go up there in the dark to see what this wet animal was. I just assumed, maybe a raccoon or something's trapped in here. And I didn't think of anything like that to like flush the cabin out when I got there. I didn't think of it. So I'm in there all night and I'm like, man, this smell, and it was just creeping me out. And I just had this weird feeling that there was something up there alive, but that was it. Just nothing. I just assumed it was like a raccoon. Second night in the cabin upstairs, I just kept getting like this creepier feeling. And I was like, man, I should have like left the doors open during the day. Maybe it would have left or something, but it creeped me out so much. And that the intensity of the feeling that I was getting, I said, I'm sleeping outside. There's a fire pit in the middle of the yard of this place, and woods all around it. Just a gorgeous place. I'm on a dirt road, and it's just really out in the middle of nowhere. So I had the fire pit and I got some wood ready, and I just figured, all right, well, if I keep a good fire going, I heard animals wouldn't bother me outside. It's better than the creepy feeling I was getting inside. So I'm out there, and the first night I slept outside 2 nights. The first night, these 2 little beagle puppies showed up, started following me around. I was feeding them snacks, whatever I could scrounge for the dogs. I felt bad for them. And so the first night we're out there, this little beagle puppy, one of them kills this 5-foot black snake, cottonmouth or something. I think they're indigenous to the area down there, but kills the snake and then lays back down and goes to sleep. So the next morning I see what it killed. It was too dark to see what it was fighting. I thought, what a brave little dog, The next night, I start getting this creepy feeling like, there was animals coming around the fire, but I didn't see any eyes shining. I'm looking, and it just kept getting more intense. And I'm like, man, is there like a pack of coyotes or something surrounding me? I just felt like it got more and more intense, but no eyes shining. And the fire started dying down. as it got like creepier and more intense. And there was no way I could go get more wood in the dark. I just wasn't going to get up from my sleeping bag and do that. I was kind of like getting, kind of scared because I just felt like something or a bunch of things were just staring at me and surrounding me. But it was, as the fire died down, it was the glow from the fire was only a few feet around at that point. And it was just so dark. So I just laid there, and the little dog was shaking and having like the hackles run up on the fur on the back of its neck and stuff. And it was scared, but it wouldn't make a peep. Now the night before, this thing's growling and barking and pivoting and fighting a snake twice its size, And then this night it doesn't want to make a peep. So I said, wow, if this dog's that scared, something's not right, So the dog just kind of laid up against me. I was in a sleeping bag. And then the more the fire died down, the more intense the feeling of being watched, I guess, or surrounded got there. So all of a sudden, once the fire got down to a very light glow, not giving off much light, this thing started blowing snots. It sounded like a cartoon bull, and they stomp on the ground and they just blow snots out of their mouth and just like a furious. It sounded like the animal. I don't know how to explain it, but anybody that's ever heard of a predator like really growl at them or something like that, you could tell that the thing is huge, and they sound, from the deepness of it, just sounded like well over 1,000 pounds. And Wes, I kid you not, when this thing stomped on the ground, it was on the other side of the glow of the fire, but there wasn't much of a glow. And when it was stomping on the ground, I could feel the ground vibrate. I was laying on the ground in a sleeping bag. I could feel the ground vibrate underneath me. That's how heavy this thing was. I was utterly terrified. Absolutely, for a fact, knew that it was nothing that I could explain or make sense of. It was so tall. The eyes were glowing bright red. They looked like the size of tennis balls. That's how big the eyes were, but a different shape, like more of an oblong shape. And the space between the eyes was probably a good 4 inches, maybe, which shouldn't be, you know what I mean, for any regular animal. But this thing it was so high. The eyes were so high up in the air, and I was laying down. These glowing eyes were so high up, Wes, that I was honestly playing tricks in my head. And I was like, are there trees close, or could there possibly be something in a tree? How could it sneak up on me? It's so big. How did I not hear this thing? All these things are going through my head, and I just can't make sense of it. And I knew for a fact that the tree line was at least 25 feet behind, because I had the fire pit was in the middle of this yard where this cabin was. And there wasn't any trees. The yard was grass, and there was like a greenhouse and stuff. But there weren't any trees for a good 25, 30 feet behind where the fire pit was. So I'm like, how the hell can these eyes be so high up? You know what I mean? And the thing's stomping on the ground. So I know that it's not like some big bird up in the air that, it was just bizarre, man. It was terrifying. And I'll tell you what I did. I shivered like a chihuahua, and I just kept praying, something told me, it said, if you get up and run, this thing is going to run you down and kill you. I was probably 25 feet from the cabin, I'd say, if I had to guess. And I just knew there's no way I would have made it. I just knew it for a fact. It wasn't just frozen from fear. I would have loved to have ran for the cabin, but I just knew, if I ran, I was going to trigger something in this thing to just run me down, which is a horrible thing to do with a predator anyway, but it was beyond that, man. It was just like a knowing, go ahead and run, you're going to die, This thing literally waited till that fire was so dim that it could just get up close. That's how I feel anyway, just to have some kind of darkness. But
were you able to make out kind of a figure of what you were seeing, or was it just the glowing red eyes?
I honestly wasn't, and I'm glad, because I hear some of these people that see these things in broad daylight or goes to their tree stand and touches them or something. Oh my God. I think I would have had a heart attack. I think I would have. That's dramatic for a 16-year-old. I don't know, man. I'm glad I didn't see it, and I didn't even know what to think, because back in the 80s, the Patterson-Gimlin film and stuff like that, but I had no clue that it was anything beyond the Pacific Northwest problem. You know what I mean? Or issue or sighting, until now. I mean, it's obvious now that it's just everywhere. It's scary. I don't get it.
So you're at kind of the stare off with this thing. What happens next?
You know what happened? I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. I prayed, and I don't know how long I prayed. It seemed like, forever. Everything seemed like forever. I mean, this thing went on for so long. I was saying, does this feel like it's going on for hours, because I'm so terrified? I literally just laid there and prayed. and shivered and prayed because it was just too terrifying, man. I didn't know what else to do. But when I tell you this thing carried on, Wes, it blew snots out of its, like, it's just going, like, growling and carrying on. And it was just unreal. And I couldn't understand how furious it would be, why it wouldn't just attack me, you know?
Yeah, it makes you wonder why it didn't attack you. I know from your email, morning came and it was gone. Tell me more about the attic, because you'd mentioned you were smelling something, and tell me more about this addict.
Because I was in the, you know how you just get a feeling when something, like if you're sleeping and your son's standing over you, you wake up, you know, almost like that. But I just kept feeling like something's up there, and the wet dog smell, I was like, it's a hunting cabin. Maybe it's that smell. But it just kept getting more intense. And I just kept getting this creepy, nasty feeling that something was up there. I never heard anything move up there, but I guess just the smell, that wet dog urine smell. And the couch didn't smell either in the cabin because I slept on the couch downstairs. But initially I just thought, maybe the furniture smells like that or something. But it was an intense smell, but it wasn't some of the smells I hear some people talk about. But I have a theory for that too. I think that the ones that are near the water a lot or go through the waterways more, maybe they're cleaner and don't smell as much. And I think some of these things might smell so rancid because they're hunting and ripping up deer apart and getting blood all over them. And blood stinks when it gets bad. I think some of these things probably do smell real bad because of that. You know? I don't know. I just theories, you know, just ideas. They're just that feeling, Wes, you know, the smell and the feeling.
Why do you think whatever it was with the glowing eyes that was like 25 feet from you, stomping and snarling, and why do you think it didn't attack you?
I've been running that through my head forever. At first I thought maybe it wanted to scare me off to eat the dogs. And then I was thinking, the dogs are so tiny. They were puppies. They were the little beagle puppies. I mean, they're so tiny. This thing was so massive. I could just tell that this ground it was stomping on the ground, Wes. It couldn't have been on the other side of the fire. It couldn't have been more than 12 feet, maybe 15 at most, which is pretty close. Cause I was pretty close to the fire because I thought the fire would keep animals away from me. But that was my theory. But this thing was so massive, the ground was vibrating when it stomped. And this thing stomped and blew snots, and it just carried on like this wild beast, man. It's unreal. I don't know. I think they have a deep hatred for us. And I mean, maybe it's, you know, through the way they communicate and the way they're raised, they're taught, you know, stay away from humans and stuff, which makes sense. But there's a deep, deep hatred for us there from them as a majority, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. You only saw the glowing eyes. You didn't actually see the figure. Normally I ask people, what do you think Sasquatch is? Well, what's kind of your take?
Personally, I think they're without a doubt a flesh and blood monster, entity, or abomination, even to go so far. I've thought about the Genesis 6 thing. I've thought about some of these biologists that call the show, and they have some pretty interesting the Gigantopithecus ideas. I mean, I think nothing evolves and comes along that's been in history for hundreds of years that we know of. I mean, even back to the Vikings, you know, you know more about than me, but with all the accounts, we have hundreds of years at the very least of records of people encountering these things. So, I mean, that's hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. I just think it's something that branched off and evolved different than us. And I think that as far as the woo stuff goes, I could never discount that because nobody would ever believe what I saw or encountered or experienced. And I can't say anybody else is wrong. You know, somebody at Mount Shasta saw one being beamed up, according to that guy. How could I say that guy's a liar? Maybe he did see that. Why would he say that? You know? And then you have that old lady saying that the star people come and take them. I don't know. And I can't even take a position on a theory like that because I don't have that experience, but I don't think these people are liars. And I think they're going out on a limb, sharing their experiences, man. I just don't know what it possibly could be. I think it's beyond just an animal though, you know?
Yeah. It sounds like a scary night regardless. When your friend showed back up, cause this was his hunting cabin, did you tell him what happened?
First thing I did was try and tell him, and it came out like a child that saw a zombie or so. I said, man, there's a monster in the woods and it's this tall. And he laughed. He was coming down the road. He had his arm in the cast, and I'm looking at him like, Chris, I said, you're not going to believe this, man. I said, there's a huge monster that lives in the woods, this and that. And, it's got these big red glowing eyes. I said, it's huge. The eyes are this big and they're this far apart. This thing has to be this tall. And he started laughing. And when he laughed, I wasn't offended. But what it made me take a look at how it must sound. It sounds like a 5-year-old telling a story, like, oh, he was scary and he had glowing eyes, and it just sounded so ridiculous, And I said, man, nobody is going to believe this. My brothers did. My brother was the first person I told, my 2 younger brothers, and I don't even think I brought it up to them until I said 40 years yesterday, but I think it was I was about 40 when I told them, so I think it was about 20 something decades anyway, years later. And because I just didn't know what to make of it, and I didn't think anybody else would. And you know what made me start looking into it online, Wes? I'll tell you exactly what it was. One of the locals that I tried to talk to that was down there, he had a farm down the street, and I said, what? I said, something was growling and blowing snots and stomping on the ground and all this stuff. I was trying to explain to the guy, and the guy said, oh, that's a buck snort. You must have heard a buck snort. I said, no, I don't think a deer made this sound. I said, it was just too massive. And I was trying to explain it to him, and the guy just kind of laughed it off as well. So I just said, man, I'm not getting anywhere with this. And he was a local. And the reason I told him that was because I just thought maybe he'd be able to shed some light on it. But I don't even think if he knew about it, he probably would have told me, not being from the area, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a scary encounter. Did you ever go back there?
I've never been back there, and we looked it up online a few months ago, and from what came up, the area looks the same, like the landscape and everything. I think it was Google Maps, not Google Maps, the other one where it pulls up the satellite stuff. But yeah, we found it and pulled it up. It looks pretty much the same. I mean, even where the cabin was, the yard's still there and everything.
Yeah, it's a scary night, man. I don't know how I would have acted in that. Whether it was a Sasquatch or not, I don't know. The glowing eyes, you often hear about the glowing eyes, but I try and put myself in your shoes. I don't know how I would have reacted either. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share it.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Wes. And I'm glad that I listened to you and your brother Woody's encounter before, actually a couple times. And it's fascinating, and I appreciate you sharing your encounter.